So thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you guys for your time, for being here. This is a very long event, but let's try our best to boil it down to practicalities, because the psychedelic renaissance, not only in the Czech Republic, but also in Europe or globally, cannot happen without investment. And today with us, it's straight from the Negev Desert to the United States, Chaim Václav, on the motorbike from Bosnia and Herzegovina is Ondřej Fritz, and from his pilgrimage in Bavaria, Václav Štrupl. And I don't know from where exactly Václav Dejčmar came, but probably just normally, casually from Prague. And the first question is going to be the same for everybody, is give us a little bit of your context. So why mental health, why psychedelic acid therapy, why the investment in this field? And if I could potentially start with the global picture of Chaim Václav, and then we're going to move towards the holy trinity behind the Czech psychedelic renaissance, represented by the three supporters of this sector. Thank you very much. And I guess the floor is yours with possibly my microphone.
Thank you. Is this working? Okay. Thank you. And first of all, thank you for setting this up. It's been a wonderful day, and it's also been very well executed. So thanks to you and the team. The global perspective is my answer to the why mental health and why psychedelics and why now. Personally, I've been in healthcare, technologies, and biotech for 25 years. And from a business point of view, it is a rare opportunity created by an exceptional circumstance that my native-born country created, and that is the war on drugs. So effectively, we've had the better part of 50 years of an artificial restraint placed on the most powerful class of molecules to affect mental health that we know. That 50-year moratorium was broken and research was enabled. And I'm not at all talking about legalization. There is very little that what brings us together here around the study of psychedelics for healthcare utility, for healthcare use, and cannabis have in common except that they're both Schedule I drugs. The nefarious part of Schedule I, and because I'm not here to speak about legalization, the nefarious part of Schedule I was not the illegality of these molecules, it was the prevention of their study. Schedule I effectively said that these molecules are evil and they shouldn't even be researched. That is the barrier that was set up. That barrier was broken. And so now you have this entire class of molecules that is moving as a bulk from academia to the private sector, through the phases of clinical trials, and eventually will be on market. I'll share one number, and then I'll move from business to a societal reason of why psychedelics and why mental health. I got the numbers for 2023. For depression, the biggest indication in psychiatry, 40% of the clinical studies, meaning in human trials that the FDA approved, 40% were with psychedelic molecules. That was 0% 4 years ago. That happened because of the war on drugs, or else this research would have been meted out like any other class of molecules over decades. So that creates a really interesting opportunity for investors, now I'll pivot into the other reason, to both do well and do good. Just to continue with depression, though I could choose many other clinical indications, there hasn't been a breakthrough in 25 years. SSRIs are generic. Prozac is generic. We're ripe for that type of breakthrough because these are at infectious disease levels of epidemic. We normally don't use infectious disease terminology when speaking about mental health issues because they don't pass from person to person the same way infectious diseases do. But if you just look at the numbers, particularly in the West, it's an epidemic problem. So Negev Capital was a group that came together. Most of the principals based in Israel, but our investments are around the globe. Europe, the United States, Australia, Israel as well, of course. We came together to focus on this unique opportunity, and we are focused exclusively on drug development, both classical psychedelics, like we see now coming through, MDMA was spoken of very broadly, phase 3, but also novel molecules. The difference between 1971, when the war on drugs was started, and today is we can design molecules today. So we can take these therapies, and there's companies doing amazing work, taking these therapies and making them more appropriate for today's medical environments. And I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm happy to discuss more of that later.
So, why I'm here? I'm a tech entrepreneur. I was all my life against drugs. I was indoctrinated that drugs are evil. And drugs are the same, like heroin and psychedelics. Mushrooms are evil, because that was what we were told in school. And all my life I just believed in that doctrine. And then my sister died of a disease that is connected with mental health. And I have another family member in my close circle that is suffering from something like that. And I started to study neurology and how the brain is working. And I found out that there are different classes of drugs, and that psychedelics can actually help many of the diseases that are currently uncurable. And I consider it almost a crime by the governments that they can allow people to smash their heads with alcohol, but cannot allow the people to cure problems that are curable. So that is my reason why I'm here.
Good evening. So I'm the investor as well, and actually I started to support psychedelic activities, say 15 years ago here in Czech Republic. And 15 years ago, if you write about, say, LSD or heroin, 90% of people here would consider this the same. So from my point of view, I thought that we need to do a lot of work at that time for destigmatization, which is still the topic, but it's not so difficult topic now. And so I started to support Czech Psychedelic Society, and I started to support after that some research as well and some popularization. And why? Because from my perspective, I really believe that psychedelics, of course, can be a great treatment, as we hear all the day today. But I think that they are really important for the future of humankind and humanity. Because there is a statistic, if the lifespan will be prolonged because of science, say to 100 years, 1/3 of people will be victims of dementia. You know, the brain, we will not cure the brain, we will cure only the body, or we will prolong lifespan of the body. And I believe that psychedelics are a gym for mind, from my perspective. It is very important if you are getting older to build muscles. So I think that if you are getting older, you need to basically fight rigidity of a neural network, and the psychedelics are the tool. This is more, of course, extended view than a psychiatric view. Yeah? I believe there is some evidence even for this. And from my perspective, it's a very, very important topic. If Elon Musk believed that we need to get people to Mars, okay. I believe that more important part or important task for humanity is, again, return psychedelics back to normal life as they used to be for thousands and thousands of years. And there's a reason why. Yeah? And there are even theories that psychedelics are the reason why we evolved to be from monkeys to be humans. So basically we lived for 50 years in a black era of total separation, yeah? And we need to return back on track. That's my view.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for putting this together. I think it's really a breakthrough event for psychedelics here in the Czech Republic and Europe as a whole. So thanks to the team, and thanks for having me. Well, why now? Why here? Why me? It's also a combination of very personal, journey where psychedelics played a role, and so my personal experience tells me that it can really change people's lives, which is kind of supported by data, and also it's supported by data that it's very safe if used in the proper environment. But even though it was, for 50 years very strictly regulated, and the kind of combination of these two paths crossed some 6-7 years ago. I represent here Miton, which is an investment company owned by 6 private individuals. So we are very lucky that we can support and invest into projects that we pick, and we don't have any external investors, any limited partners. And we have seen that after those 50 years, now it's possible to support some projects, in this area. And that was the time when I just jumped in and decided that's the right thing to do, because when we have seen the trends, in mental health, and now specifically after the COVID pandemics, it's really alarming, and mainly for the young generation. And this could be the tool that will help us in that. So we just jumped in and are trying to support both like for-profit initiatives, but in broader perspective, just build the whole ecosystem around psychedelics, which is about clinical work, it's about research, it's about harm reduction, it's about public opinion and stigma around it. As was mentioned, many people still think it's just drugs and it's dangerous. So we need to do the real work here, and also working with legislators to do the proper changes.
Thank you so much. And I think at the beginning I did a grave mistake with rotating the microphone. I think that for some people the investment environment might be as obscure as the shamanic environment for the others. So to actually yet again boil it down to practicalities, the question is where we are actually at from your investment perspective, and where is the division line between the philanthropy and investments? Is there a new biotech subsector of innovative pharma being developed? And if so, at what stage are we at? Which is going to be my question, I guess, for Andre at the beginning. And then from Haim, I would like to understand how do you as a global company perceive Europe in all of this? Since we all know that it is now actually States and Australia and UK leading the pivotal role also when the market is being established. So what is the role of Europe in all of that? So Andre, if you could elaborate on that a little bit, probably with the other microphone.
Right, so from this investor's perspective, it's really hard call because it's regulated, it's illegal, so and it has a high stigma in the society. So investing in a company that is promising to develop, for example, a novel substance to treat mental health issues based on psychedelics, it's almost certain it would fail in the current environment. So for an investor that has certain care for money, because, for example, our fund also takes care of other people's money, we can't simply invest in those breakthrough things because the probability of success would be really low and it would be a really long shot. So for us, or for me, myself, it's more philanthropy than investments. Having said that, we do have certain companies that are taking care of mental health issues, or I don't know, we share an investment with Miton for generated music for psychedelic therapies. So there are certain cases that can be found in the investment sphere, but it's mostly charity.
I'd like to answer both questions, if I may.
You are absolutely allowed to do so.
Just because I have a slightly different perspective, and I think the reason is I guess this is a fusion of the questions. We tend to track the American regulatory environment, right? The FDA being the most difficult regulator in the solar system that's ever been created. And they now have given more than one psychedelic substance breakthrough status. And that's not just a hyperbolic term, that's actually a legal designation of fast-tracking them through. The stigma is absolutely present and absolutely the biggest issue we have, but there's a lot of progress being made there. I've been in this sector for 5 years. And in that time, we're now at a point where in the latest polls, more than 70% of Americans like me, that grew up with Nancy Reagan telling us to just say no, right, to all of these substances. 70% of Americans would use a psychedelic therapeutic if prescribed by a physician. That's a massive leap forward. You cannot pick up an issue of the American Psychiatric Association without at least one article on psychedelics. It's permeated the general media at this point. Not to discount at all, it is the biggest problem we have, is the stigma, but huge progress has been made. It's not the same as it was 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. So from an investment point of view, we're also seeing companies that are moving on the novel molecule path, right? Meaning fully patentable novel molecules that both the FDA and the Patent Office see as brand new molecular entities that will go through the regulatory and all the testing processes that any new drug would, except we know, because these are derived from psychedelics, we know their safety and efficacy profiles already. So they have an advantage on many other novel molecules, derivative molecules. Finally, I'll say that clinically, we believe that there's less stigma than there is in the general population. Meaning, we're in an environment with such an overwhelming mental health crisis that if you provide for clinicians something with efficacy, not that people promise it so, but that you've done the real science. If you have the clinical trials data and it works, investment dollars will come, and we think we're years away from, not 10, a handful of years away from more breakthroughs behind MDMA coming to light. And Europe just happens to be that Canada and the United States are the epicenters of this research. I mean, Johns Hopkins really punched through the Schedule I wall with their psychedelic research lab, but we've reached a point now, Imperial College, Leiden, Maastricht, many medical research institutions of merit now have psychedelic research departments. All of that's also in the last 5 years, by the way. So Europe is certainly, forgive me for phrasing it this way, but Europe outside of the UK and Holland is generally behind
the Czech Republic.
And the Czech Republic is generally, from a research point of view, behind the United States, Canada, and Australia, but rapidly ascending.
And also, as we say in Brussels, it takes us time, and when we regulate well. But thank you for your answers. And now moving in from the global perspective to more of the regional one. So today we spoke a lot about the so-called Czech model of the Czech Republic potentially being at least regional, potentially the European leader of psychedelic renaissance. And I would like to ask Václav Štrupl in this case, who is actually probably more of the investment part than philanthropic. Are there any regional ambitions whatsoever behind of your activities that you could share, or do you believe that the Czech model could be somehow pioneering for other countries in the region, or is it whatever you do being just focused solely on the Czech Republic and the Czech patients?
Well, for now, we definitely start here, but it's similar for other companies, regular businesses and startups in our portfolio that we start here. We kind of develop some kind of playbook for how to approach that, and then, if possible, we can expand that to other countries as well. Obviously, for this very complicated, and it's important to mention that it's very complicated, highly regulated. You are dependent on, public, not only regulators, but health insurance companies and different stakeholders in the ecosystem that not always act rationally, I would say. So it's different from typical startups. So, but still, we are trying to develop a kind of playbook here and then expand it further to Europe. And I think we are with our clinic Psyon here, we are on the top of the iceberg, I would say, worldwide in the sense that we are able to cover the most of the care from public health insurance. It's not, you cannot see that in Great Britain or the US. So these are the ways we are trying to develop here and then maybe roll out somewhere else. But it's difficult because, even though we are part of the European Union, still the local environments are different. So it's not that we can copy it here and paste it there, but we can learn something that will be able to. But our main focus right now is Czechia and develop this Czech model, and
Great.
then maybe teach it somebody else.
Definitely new information for Negev Capital, maybe. And come to other Václav, since I know that you approach things from a wider perspective. Do you actually believe that the Czech Republic is somehow unique in mental health? Or there is a tradition that maybe allows that to be a bit deeper, that we can build on something? Could you elaborate on that a little bit, please? And if it's something that maybe affects your philanthropic activities too.
I believe that we can be innovation hub, as was discussed here, because we are a country of spas, Mariánské Lázně, Karlovy Vary, whatever. And spas, of course, are ideally suited for psychologic-assisted psychedelic therapy. And why not? You know, just imagine if we somehow connect Czech Republic with words like wellness, well-being, longevity, yeah? And it would be our brand. And if I am a prime minister, which I wouldn't like to do, I would definitely do something like connect Czech Republic with some vision. We don't have any vision. I used to be involved in something called Czech Republic for Finance for a few years. And my vision was, let's create Czech Republic to be like Singapore, you know, let's have investment funds here and let's do like a hub, innovation hub for finance. Of course, nobody was interested in this, yeah? But we prepared it with lawyers, everything. So let's do one more time, try one more time, Czech Republic as country for wellness, well-being and psychedelic therapy. I believe that this is real business. If you have legislation, I believe that it could be great business because all these things like wellness, well-being, and longevity are ideally located in spa cities, and of course we don't even need insurance companies. Many people from around the world would be happy to pay for this if we have reasonable legislation here.
So first of all, on behalf of Václav, I would like to say that all big ideas in history start with a author of the collective. So, and then secondly, I hope so that Singapore is not going to be the model in drug policies. But other than that, I fully hear you. And maybe since psychedelics are so heavily regulated, from your perspective, be it philanthropic or investment, what is now the biggest obstacle for you? What do you perceive with your investor angle?
Okay, can I just add one more thing to that? Because it kind of sounds like a grand vision for the distant future, but it's real. And with our clinic here, with the cost that we have for the treatment, for us, it definitely would make sense to do it as an incoming business, and for people from abroad, from countries like the UK, where similar treatment costs, £6,000 to £8,000, and we can do it for 1/4 of that or even less, it totally makes sense to kind of invite people to come here and get the same quality of treatment for much lower cost, even without public insurance companies. So I just want to add to that it really makes sense from the rational perspective, not just from the, like a grand vision for the distant future.
Absolutely agree. And maybe if Ondřej would like to take the question of the biggest obstacle from your analysis, like what is the obstacle on the road?
The biggest obstacle is obvious, is the legislation. If we just get rid of that and we are a free country, like Jamaica is, and there are retreat centers for wealthy Americans all over, and other countries like Costa Rica, and people are traveling there, spending their money there, and we can do it here in the Czech Republic. And for just coming back to the last question, why not Czech Republic? Czech Republic is ideally suited for that. It's the center of Europe. We have a long tradition in that. I mean, Stanislav Grof comes from Czech Republic. We all know that. And LSD was produced here on a big scale, and the research that has been done here till the mid-70s, and then now it's cutting edge. So why not us? I mean, it's perfectly suited.
And we indeed try to keep up with the tradition. Maybe one question to Haim, and which oftentimes I think from the people who are a little bit further from the core of the psychedelic renaissance, there is always a little bit of a confusion with the cannabis wipe that came a decade ago. So what is actually different when it comes to why cannabis is not, which we all know that is not, but if you could elaborate on that from the perspective of yours.
From two perspectives, and you're right, that conflation, particularly in countries like this where cannabis has been legalized, and various states in the United States, though people often confuse this. Cannabis is not federally legal in the United States. If the president ordered the FBI to go kick in every door of every cannabis dispensary in California, he'd be within his rights to do that. There's actually a conflict between the states and the federal government right now on cannabis. But that speaks to the central difference between cannabis and psychedelics for our purposes, for everybody in this room's purposes. Cannabis is 98 cents on the dollar recreational. With all due respect to the health and wellness benefits of cannabis. And there is one single drug called Epidiolex that was ever created from a cannabinoid. That's it. That's why it's not 100 cents on the dollar, but only 98. Psychedelics is the absolute inverse of that. I attend all the conferences. You meet with all the people. You do not hear as much discussion of the recreational use. Lots of reforms, and a couple of states have decriminalized, and of course we're all for that, but that is ancillary to the core. The core here is the medical use of psychedelics for health and wellness, directly. What everybody's opinions are about legalization and the use of these drugs, as I believe, the use of these drugs for the healthy well, if you will, for longevity purposes, is going to come. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But as an industry and the finances that drive this sector, it is the health and wellness benefits. It's the medical utility. And for cannabis, the medical utility always seemed like it was dealing with symptoms for people undergoing cancer treatment, for example, to help with sleep, to help with appetite. All of those are good. They're easily replicated with other drugs that do not have the same legal baggage. And the money always flowed from the recreational use. Whereas in psychedelics, it is absolutely about creation of medicines that have tremendous impact and are far more effective than the standards of care today for disease states that are a massive burden at all levels of society. So the difference between cannabis and psychedelics is one is from a market point of view, one is a recreational market, and the other one is absolutely a biotech market.
Absolutely understood. Is there anyone, would you like to elaborate on that a bit, or is it good? So there is one thing that we've heard today, that for the regulators to be able to move forward, you need data. And I think there is one thing that we all understand that it's needed, which is a cost efficiency study or cost effectivity on it. Could this actually be cheaper or better for the system? So is it of anyone's appetite to somehow get engaged with the study of that kind in the Czech Republic? Is it something you think about or contemplate about, or is it a new thing? The cost, I never know if it's cost efficiency or cost effectivity, so I'm sorry to the experts, but is there a possibility for that study focused on the Czech patients or the Czech market that could pave the way for the region in this regard? Thank you.
Yeah, we are definitely preparing that and already working on that for ketamine. You have seen the numbers from Standa, from CEO of Psyon, that it's really effective. Quite large numbers already, so we just need to crunch that, and put it into those qualis and so on. And I'm just hoping that it will persuade somebody, because we have seen the representative of, Czech, the major Czech public health insurance company, with this idea of kind of risk sharing, which for me is still kind of something to think about, because it's difficult to imagine how we can share the risk for mental health patients with really long-term, benefits to be obtained. So, but we are still going this path and trying to prepare this study for ketamine, which is the only legal option right now for the patients. Of course, if MDMA or psilocybin or other compounds become legal and we can use them, and we have promising results that it's even more effective, then we will definitely support that too.
I think that Western world is in the middle of epidemic of mental illnesses. It will be worse, I believe, only because it's going to be worse, mainly among young people and old people as well. it will somehow force the system, force government to legalize psychedelics. Basically, that's it, because it's only option. There are no other options, to say it easy. And it's not an expensive option. The real expense is human time, because you need therapists. Psychedelics are not solution itself. You need to accompany the experience with a therapy. And the question for Czech Republic is very, very easy. Are we going to lead this change, or are we going to follow?
Well, very little to add here. We all know that it's actually obvious that if we see the costs for antidepressants that are skyrocketing, and also the secondary costs of the people that are not contributing to the economics because they are sitting at home with depression. But that's just one part of this huge space of where psychedelics have a potential, and that's depression. But we have very promising studies. One of them is done on the National Institute for Mental Health here for Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative diseases that are another massive burden for the health insurance system. So, like, okay, we can do studies one by one, and we can study the numbers, and they are needed, sure. But it's so obvious that we just should start even without the numbers.
I know the question was about the Czech Republic, but given what these gentlemen just said about the Czech Republic being beautifully positioned to be a center for the actual delivery of therapy, I just want to weave together what you guys just said, because I see it everywhere in the world, and it's 100% true. We all talk about these drugs, and we're all focused on the molecules and the legalization, the ability to study, the research, all of that. Almost as a side note is the actual therapy that goes around the use of these drugs. It's not a side note, it's crucial. It is as important as the molecules themselves for the healing efficacy of these molecules to actually occur. Right, it's not a side note. The MDMA therapy that was presented earlier, there was a dozen intention settings, and then the administration of the drugs, and then integration afterwards. That has to be done well. So if this does become a center of excellence for the actual delivery of care, the study of the therapeutic environments down to the music and actually the therapy taking place, that would be a wonderful thing to actually study. That is the next frontier in this space, I believe. It's novel molecules, the accompanying therapy, and everything around it. That's where we're headed.
Thank you very much. And I wouldn't dare to call it a commitment, but if there is still someone from insurance company, maybe there is a hope that some data is coming. And this might be a bit simplifying question, but I think that's something that who might be, yet again, a bit further from the core of psychedelic renaissance, be it globally or in the Czech Republic. So if you would be asked from investors' perspective, the most interesting substance when it comes to the medical psychedelics, pardon my French, so if you could go one by one.
Well, we are not really deciding.
I mean, business-wise.
Based on substance, the only one legal for the real use here in the Czech Republic was ketamine, and that's why we started with the clinical, with a clinic where we can do the real work and obtain the experience. And also that's really important to train therapists, because you have running the clinic, you have 3 major bottlenecks there. You need demand, which luckily is here, luckily is, quote unquote, because it means that many people have mental health problems. These people also need to be able to pay for that. We are trying to address that by covering that from public health insurance, but still there is some add-on which needs to be paid by people. The second bottleneck is the physical operations. You need a building, you need to do all the brick and mortar stuff, which typically isn't in startups that we invest in, which these are internet companies. And the third major bottleneck is trained team of therapists. And starting with ketamine and starting doing the real work, psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, we were able to create quite large team as of now, with people who are trained and have experience with working with these substances, and that definitely will be needed in the future when the other substances become legal and possible to use. So it's not about the bet to a specific substance. We are not financing, the development of new molecules or these global scale projects. It's just not in our area of interest as of now, I would say, but we are reacting for what's coming, and this is the way how we prepare to that.
Yeah, thanks to Miton and Václav for this great role startup. Psyon is really great role startup for me because they show and they have data that such a clinic is necessary, at least for pharmacoresistant patients with depression, because for them it's only option. And actually they started it just on the borderline of legality, and it works great. So thank you for having a courage to do it. And yeah, from my perspective, I completely agree with Václav. But if I would like to be more like marketing person, of course we need to legalize mushrooms first, right? Which is psilocybin, because it's going together with Czech Republic, for a long time.
And the Czech model.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's about the substances. We can put dollars into research of new novel substances, but new novel substances would need more clinical trials and more years. And we already know the efficacy data about psilocybin, for example. So for us, the investors, it's or for at least for our fund, it's not really about funding a new substance like. Some investor probably made millions of dollars on ketamine in US, which is patentable, but most of the psychedelics that we know aren't patentable because they are known for 40 years. So I think it's more about the infrastructure, as Václav here said.
To honor your question about specific molecules, ketamine as well. I'm actually partners in Israel's first ketamine infusion center, also probably similar issues you had, the off-label use and all of that needed to be overcome. Ketamine because it is the first, but it's really a pseudo-psychedelic in a sense. My personal bias is the same as yours. It's psilocybin. It's psilocybin because there is no lethal dose. I mean, the safety data is beyond reproach. So, and the transdiagnostic efficacy, we talked about depression, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, and the latest work on smoking cessation out of Johns Hopkins. I think there is a cornucopia of utility to psilocybin, and also because it is a brand ambassador for psychedelics. I think with that will come greater acceptance for what is going to come next, which will be novel molecules that are more suitable for current medical environments, where there may be trips that are down to an hour and a half that could be done in a psychiatrist's office today. There could be non-hallucinogenic psychedelics. There's lots of effects that are very positive that are behind the overwhelming psychedelic experience that are very positive for neurology, pain management. I just saw a company that was doing a macular degeneration product based on DMT. There's so much here, and I'll end with one comment that I cannot take credit for. It was said to me by another investor in this space when I said, I made the offhanded remark that, we're just at the beginning of this race. And he laughed and he said, we're not at the beginning of this race. We're sitting on the couch thinking about putting on our sneakers. We haven't even started running yet. So with that, thank you for pulling this together.
Thank you so much, and also thanks to the fact we were a bit delayed, and it also rarely happens that 3 e-commerce entrepreneurs and 1 Israeli/US investor are sitting in the Liechtenstein Palace of the Office of the Government. I would like to ask you for questions from the audience and to use this rare opportunity that we have combined here at the table. And I see Professor Marseille from Berkeley University raising his hand.
Just a quick question. Why not DMT? There's some really promising work on DMT for depression, short-acting, and very safe. And anyway, I was just surprised that none of you mentioned an interest in DMT. Is there a reason for that?
So why not DMT?
I'm thinking of 5-MeO in particular.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're referring to and why. DMT scares the shit out of people, to put it colloquially and frankly. because the trips are, even though it is far more well suited for today's clinical environments with a short duration trip, you know, the businessman's trip as it's crassly referred to, the efficacy is there, the studies are coming. So I actually think DMT is ascendant. But simply what I said earlier about the brand ambassador, I've never been asked that question before, but that's what occurred to me. It's a personal bias. But you're absolutely right about the studies in DMT, and the DMT analogs that are coming are fascinating. Yes.
Well, I think the reason is that psilocybin has hundreds of studies that already proven the efficacy for depression mainly. And DMT, as far as I know, or 5-MeO-DMT, only has one closed clinical trial that has proven its effect. Now there are several that are running, one in Switzerland, one here on the NUTS. And they are mostly for neurodegenerative diseases, not depression, and that is, I think, ascending or coming. Depression is the big elephant in the room that everybody is aware of.
Right, just real quick, I mean, there's early evidence of terrific efficacy of 5-MeO-DMT for depression.
But that is anecdotal, right? Or can you support this with clinical trials?
Yeah, so I'm talking about small pharma. It's published.
All right.
I can send it to you.
All right, thank you.
And then again, the other advantage is it's short acting.
I know. I'm on the same side.
So as I said, for marketing purposes, because Czech Republic is connected to psilocybin, you know, but if I should decide, really only having some data and science, I think what Andrei said, there are more studies, more evidence for psilocybin. This is probably important now, but I believe that it will change in a few years because more and more studies are published from Imperial College in London and everywhere for DMT. And I personally made a movie about 5-MeO-DMT, which is quite popular, you know. And of course, I'm a big advocate of 5-MeO-DMT because you are having 10 minutes of experience and we can use it for several months or even a year, you know, to integrate, think about you, and it's giving you basically total change, you know, of personality if you need such a strong substance. So definitely, I believe that we are heading there. But for now, if we should really try to force the legal system somewhere, I believe it's easier with psilocybin.
Václav.
I have nothing special to add. As I said, we are with our intentions. We are more reacting to what's happening. If I were a biotech startup developing a molecule, I would have to bet on one indication or something. But in our position, we are trying with Psyon. We are trying to support the clinical trials that are running. There are 4 or 5 of them that take place in the clinics. So we are working with the patients to support all the molecules that are being developed for some indications. And in the future, as mentioned by Chaim, I think it can be, different substances, different protocols for different, patients and different causes. Somebody wants to trip and has the value from the trip. Somebody wants everything but the trip, and there can be different molecules and different protocols for different patients and indications. And we would like to support it broadly.
Thank you. I hope that answered Elliot's question. And I see, today's stellar speaker, Professor Eric from Miton from Leiden University, freshly arrived from Japan, having a question, and someone need to give him a microphone, so I'm going to be the person, I guess.
I really appreciate this panel, and as Victor says, in the Liechtenstein Palace here, looking at the past. My question is maybe a little bit looking at the future. I've been talking to Tim Ferriss and Dr. Brunner, and they had their personal motive and personal motivation to push this field forward, and I really strongly value how you have done that, each of you individually. Really wonderful stories that you have brought to the field and how you bring this field really forward. I cannot do that. I'm not fortunate enough to kind of give that push to this field. I see that, like, when I talk to Rick Doblin and MAPS, that MAPS has really grown because of people like you. Philanthropy could never have been done by the government only. My question is maybe, like if we look at where this is going 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we heard from one of the first presenters, 10 years ago, we didn't have the discourse that we currently have. What are your perspective on, I'm 62 now, and I don't know how old I will be, over 100 or so, but how will this younger generation be standing on your shoulders in the years to come? We'll never wipe out mental health problems, and depression will always still be there, and PTSD will also be there, but I just wonder your vision and how you individually will be able to contribute to the next 10 years or so. What is your fantasy, where you can help?
A terrific question.
Well, that's a very, very broad question. My vision behind it all is, let's say, prevention. So I believe that everybody should have safe access to those experiences as part of, keeping your life in check, I would say, or, being mentally, having your mental health in order. And that needs, for healthy people to have access to such experiences that also, from my personal experience and my personal journey, can be really life-changing, and it brings qualities or values that are not only, for you personally on the individual level, but it has this intrinsic quality of bringing people together, being better connected to nature, building communities, and all these things are very important for the future of humanity. So I think this, like psychedelics and their proper use in safe environment with trained people plays a role in that. And I see this, medicalization and this path that we have taken as the proper way there, so that we keep it, safe, so that we have the right pace for this change, so that there is no pushback that would kind of be too strong, or there's this adoption of society for that. So behind all that, there is this my dream of the societal structure and relationships and our relationship to the nature, and this is kind of step-by-step road to get there. So I hope it doesn't sound like too far away or visionary. And my personal experience, of course, plays very crucial role in that, because it's very difficult to hand this experience over to other people just by words, or so that it doesn't sound empty. But when you have this experience and you kind of go through that and see how it influenced your own life, you can see the potential for others as well, which is supported by numbers then.
I'm just going to briefly step in before you start. I actually think it's healthy that these discourses that we are usually used to in the United States, we are finally having in Central and Eastern Europe. So thank you for that.
So we are together with Andrei members of board of directors of PSYRES, which is the foundation for psychedelic research, which is promoting heavily psychedelics and mainly supporting science. So for me, science is the most important topic, because one thing is our feelings, second thing is real evidence. Yeah? And for me, very, very crucial is to continue and finance the real science. And what I believe is that we are at this time basically, or it is on the Earth, 8 billion people, yeah? And what we are creating here on Earth is a complex system. Complex system is a mathematical term, and complex systems cannot be controlled. If somebody believes that there are Illuminatis controlling everything, he's crazy, just because from mathematical perspective, complex systems cannot be controlled. But we would like to survive somehow. It's very, very crucial, of course, to do the right decisions, but we cannot control everything. What to do? What we can do from a mathematical perspective is to find and look for so-called leverage points. Leverage points mean that if you find a good topic in the complex system and influence it, a whole complex system is a little bit bent somewhere. Yeah? And you can, in this way, looking for right leverage points, say maximize our probability of survival. it's really about survival. There are really major geopolitical issues which can lead in a matter of hours to total extinction. You can probably understand everybody. And for me, psychedelics are a way, psychedelic experience and expanding of our consciousness as a human beings is a tool how to say believe that there is better probability that we will survive and we will develop something else. It's very important to start working on our consciousness. Consciousness is the same as many thousands years ago, but we have technology which is totally different, you know. And really, it's for us in PsyRes in the foundation, it's really important to do a good science and really to promote this, because I believe it's a very leverage point.
So for me, science is the first step. Science must be there to convince the majority of people that it is actually good for them. It's not drugs that they should be scared of, but it actually can help with lots of different mental and other health issues. So please, whoever has any extra dollar, please send to PsyRes or other other supporting organization, because the clinical trials or this field is really tremendously expensive, and any help is appreciated. But in 5 years, I think there's no doubt that psilocybin, for example, will be legal for medical use. It's so obvious, and it's already happening. If we do not legalize it, we will be lagging behind. It's happening in Canada, it's happening in the US, it's happening in Australia. Just recently it happened in Thailand. Imagine Thailand. It has been traditionally one of the toughest countries where you could go for life to prison for cannabis, and they just now legalized medicinal use of psilocybin, I believe. So it will be here for medical use, but my vision is that it will be also free to use for people that want to work on their consciousness. I'm a libertarian, and I believe that everyone should be free to work with himself. As I go to the gym to treat my muscles on the physique, I should be able to go to the gym to work on my muscle in the brain. And I should not be forbidden from that. It's my being, and it's my decision and my responsibility. So we should work on the harm reduction. So right now, I can go to the forest and pick up a toxic mushroom and kill myself. And it's fully legal. But I cannot go there and pick up a psychedelic mushroom because it's illegal. I think it just doesn't make sense. So I'm a libertarian. I hope this will be a free decision of everybody.
We haven't done the studies yet, but I think that the toxic mushrooms are less safe than the... I agree with everything that you guys have said fully, like completely agree with everything that's been said. I'll add a couple of practical predictions, just real world predictions. At the highest level of extrapolation, the next 5 to 10 years will be messy. There's no question about it. There will be scandal. There will be abuses. There will be misuse of MDMA. There will be terrible stories of what people do under high doses of hallucinogenic psychedelics. That will be part of this. As human beings, we don't always respect things that ought to be respected because of their power. Psychedelics are remarkably powerful, and they should be treated with respect. So you can rest assured a fraction of society will not respect them as such. There will also be wonderful advents for healthcare, like the ammunition given to the naysayers will pale in comparison to the ammunition given to those who see the societal benefits of the broad use of psychedelics, both for pathology and for health and wellness benefits, there's no question. Practical predictions, more big pharma is going to come into this space. We've already seen the first deal. I'm happy to say both of these companies are in Negev's portfolio. Mindset was acquired by Otsuka. That's the first big pharma footprint in the space. There was an enormous deal that just happened, $1 billion worth with Gilgamesh. And there's more in the pipe that are coming. So all of these companies that are developing both classical psychedelics and novel molecules, they have the wherewithal to take it through phase 2B, right, which is you're testing on people with clinical pathology for efficacy. None of them, very few of them actually, I should say, Compass, Atai, Lykos, nobody else has the wherewithal to take them through phase 3. The best that they're aiming for is to be acquired or invested in by big pharma. Already at the conferences, there's people from names that we all know because we all have them in our medicine cabinet that are sort of hiding that on their badge. They're not going to be hiding those names much longer as more and more data comes out. Like I said, I chose depression. I could have chosen many other indications. 40% of clinical trials that were FDA blessed are with psychedelics. It's inevitable that big pharma will have to react to the outcome of those trials. And it'll actually be an accelerator. So that's another prediction.
Eric, would you like to still react?
Thank you again for the opportunity. Real brief is a while ago I met Joe Green. I met him at Birmingham. I can disclose that. He's the president of a philanthropic society in the U.S. And now I don't know whether that's right. You do know each other, right? But could we empower your forces by not individually contributing with philanthropy that is, but if you empower each other, then we will have much more momentum and we could do the things that otherwise we would never be able to do. So my question is for Europe, is that a way to go and have a philanthropic organization to amplify our efforts? Would that be something you had an appetite for?
So we have Victor here, right?
Sorry?
Psychedelics too.
Yeah. So we do have a platform in Brussels that is pushing these things on the European Parliament. So I believe we have good representation.
I also feel that the field right now here is much more, collaborative than competitive, and all of us are kind of supporting and promoting the same, interests and same organizations. And Victor started with this Holy Trinity, and that's a problem. It's still like the three of us, or our organizations supporting this, and we need new people to come in from business, from just private wealth individuals to support it. And if there is somebody here, listening, just come in. There is a space for you, at this table, and you can join forces with us. We will be more than glad to have you here.
And with that said, I think that is as much as one can get per day on the medical use of psychedelics. So, guys, thank you very much for being here. And the floor is yours. And the evening definitely continues in the lower chambers of this palace.
Dámy a pánové, to byla závěrečná debata a v ní na otázky Viktora Chvátala a na vaše odpovídali a debatovali Václav Štrupl, Václav Dejčmar, Ondřej Fritz a Haim Raklau. Moderátorem byl Viktor Chvátal. Děkujeme.